There are lots of people in America who have lifetimes of practice and centuries of cultural development at figuring out what to do when you don't dominate the world. Namely, everyone in America except rich white men. Unfortunately, the people who know that stuff generally don't do very well in the education system. Because in order to prepare them to succeed in the American world domination economy, the education system tries to convince those people that a lot of their ideas are wrong. If you get so discouraged with the education system that you drop out of high school, it doesn't matter if you're Albert Einstein. If you have exceptional abilities at remembering things and organizing information in your mind, and no high school diploma, someday you'll be able to get a really good job as the manager of a warehouse or something, but you'll never work as a scientist. You'll be just another one of those dumb people who think they deserve more civil rights, who all the college-educated scientists have been trained to be afraid of. In this video, I'm going to make a lot of big, unconditional statements about life. That's because I'm talking about big, unconditional scientific laws. A lot of people seem to think that proves I'm some aspiring military dictator or something, but you're missing the point. It never ceases to amaze me how many scientists, and even people who claim to be atheists, assume I must be talking about political ideology just because some other people have noticed parts of these big patterns. Then a lot of scientists and so-called atheists start ascribing supernatural powers to their own ideologies because they assume their ideology must be at least as good as mine. And if scientific laws prove that it isn't, they assume that means there must be more scientific laws out there somewhere that we haven't discovered yet that will prove their ideology really does work. People with degrees in astrophysics or computer sciences think they're experts at sociology just because their political ideology says college graduates know everything. Every claim that I make about life derives from well-established first principles that were discovered by scientists. If you're a scientist and your political ideology contradicts first principles of science, the simplest explanation is that your ideas are faulty. Then there's that argument a lot of people make that politics are really complicated. It's easy to believe that when you've never put your life on the line for them. For those of us for whom politics has come down to a struggle between life and death, politics are very simple. Either you do whatever it takes to stay alive, or you die. The purpose of this video is to derive from first principles of science why the education system in America is a crime against humanity. Quite simply, the pioneers of global environmental science discovered 40 years ago that humanity's economic relationship to the environment was going to result in global disaster in the 21st century. And still, the education system in America is filling the country up with people who depend on the world domination economic system to be able to put their educations to use to make their livings. At this point, it can be derived from first principles of science that there's no such thing as science education in America. If you major in science, you specialize in a field and learn a lot about that field, and are kept ignorant of a lot of scientific discoveries that aren't directly related to that field. A lot of people are learning this compartmentalized science and are proceeding with the assumption that someone else must be learning all the stuff they aren't learning, and that a bunch of specialists each doing their own thing is somehow going to add up to something cohesive. But what if you're wrong? What are all you college-educated scientists going to do if Our political system is being controlled by people who realize that the continuation of the political system that their power depends upon depends on most Americans being kept functionally scientifically illiterate, and on keeping the people who do learn science so focused on small problems that none of you can ever see the forest for the trees. What if all your specialization is just being used to divide and conquer you? Did you ever think of that? Compartmentalized science isn't science education, it's just science training. That's teaching people how to apply science in certain ways to achieve certain objectives. That's not teaching people how to apply science to life in general. A lot of specialized scientists have discovered a lot of connections among their various branches of science. So it is possible for a person to compile enough of a background in science to add up to everything in the world. Anyone who can read books can do it, but nobody will ever give you a degree for it. Science, minus a few critical details that people need to be kept ignorant of to keep them dependent on a certain political system, isn't science. It's political propaganda disguised as science. They tried that in the Soviet Union, too. And it didn't work, did it? In fact, it's even a lie to say that we have public education in America at all. Because the purpose of education, as every teacher learns in the course of their training, is the self-empowerment of the student. An education that keeps students dependent on an economic system that's contributing to global disaster is not self-empowerment. The education system in America is filling the world up with people who wield disproportionately large amounts of economic power, meaning decision-making power in the use of resources, meaning political power, and who don't even understand that their own economic system is contributing to global disaster. There's a lot you can learn about objective thought by going to college, but how to think objectively under imminent threat of death is not one of them. Well, that's how I learned objectivity. And in this video, I'm going to put my education to use. If you thought that you should go to college so you could make a middle or upper class income, and thereby wield a disproportionately large amount of economic power, and therefore political power, and it never even occurred to you that maybe you should learn the first principles that govern how your economic system works, that was your choice, not mine. I've already sacrificed just about everything I have in life for the sake of a bunch of college-educated Americans who had no idea what they were doing, and I'm not doing it anymore.